Good morning. Good to see all of you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us online as well. I really appreciate it. My name is Joe Laughlin. I'm the lead pastor here. And if you're here today in the room, I'd love to meet you in person. I'll be right outside in the Commons after church. Come by, introduce yourself. That would be great. Met new people. Every Sunday is someone's first Sunday. So if that's you today, you're in good company, okay? So just know that. And if you're new, I want to make sure you know how we do what we do here. I'm the lead pastor here, but I'm on a teaching team, and we take turns rotating in this room and next door in our classic venue. So like this morning, Jack Bodenhammer, our interim teaching pastor, taught over there while I was teaching here at 9:30. Two rooms going at the same time at that hour. And last week, if you were here, you saw Hannah Brown, our preaching resident here. She's a Master's of Divinity student at Truett Seminary and did a great job, by the way. And I'm here today, and someone else will be here next Sunday while I'm next door talking in the classic venue. So that's how we do it here. And if you're new, we just want you to know that. There's sort of a rhythm to it, but not necessarily. So it's just something that we do, and we think it's important. And while we're on that topic, I want to ask you this. I think it's kind of something we're kind of known for, that we've got this quirky teaching model thing going. But I wonder what you think of when I say, what is First Temple known for? In fact, I kind of wonder what you hear that First Temple is known for out there. What comes to mind? And we're talking about this idea of we living at and as the intersection between heaven and hell, as the people of God, as His representation on earth, as His body of Christ, as His body. We represent Him, and so we live at and as the intersection between heaven and hell. And so what we present as our reputation, or what we kind of gain as what we're known for, that's a very important thing. And so we've been talking about that. We've been talking about some things like it's important that we are known for loving each other and bearing each other's burdens and living in harmony. Today we're going to talk about practicing hospitality. And next week we'll talk about seeking humility. Those are things that we think it's important for us to be known for. As you think about what we're known for as a church, are we known for those things? What do we need to do to become known as people that are like that, who love, who bear burdens, who have harmony, who demonstrate hospitality, who have humility? Now, we've gotten those ideas from one particular place in the scriptures we're going to keep looking at today in the letter of Paul, the apostle, to the believers in Rome. So Romans chapter 12, find a copy of God's word, either in print like this or online somewhere, your favorite Bible app, or even download the church app, and look with me in Romans chapter 12. We're going to be reading verses 9 through 21, and this is the Apostle Paul's letter to the believers at Rome who were, like us, living in a very secular culture and society that really didn't give much care about God at all, and they were trying to figure out how to live at and as the intersection between heaven and hell, as Christ's body, as His representatives in the world. And see if you can pick out those things I mentioned when we read this passage. The love one another, bear burdens, live in harmony, practice hospitality, seek humility. See if you can hear that when we read this. Romans 12, verses 9 through 21. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Here we go. Practice hospitality. There it is. Verse 14. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn, live in harmony with one another. Stop being proud. Instead, become willing to associate with people of lower status, lower position. Stop being conceited. Never repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, As far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, "It is mine to avenge. I will repay," says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Stop being overcome by evil. Instead, overcome evil with good. Now, draw your attention up to verse 13, where it says what we're really going to hone in on today. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Give space to, make room for particular people in your life. We'll talk about that. Practice hospitality. Now you're thinking, okay, hospitality. This is the food and fellowship sermon in this series. You know, we church people, we got the food and fellowship thing down. I mean, we've got a cool cafe down the Commons, you know, where you can get what you need for breakfast. You get the right drink to order that you want and all of that sort of stuff. And it's cool. We're a cool church. We've got a cafe. We're good. Check on the fellowship thing and the hospitality thing. We're good. Or maybe your mind comes to like some sort of like party that you've been to with one of our groups. Maybe you're attending a life group and you've been with a life group offsite somewhere. And it's not a rager or kegger, but hey, these people do pretty good at their partying. I mean, they like to have a lot of fun. Well, I want to share with you this morning that when we talk about practicing hospitality, that actually, none of that is what we're talking about. In fact, this morning, I'm going to invite you on a little bit of a steep kind of climb a little bit. I don't know if you hike or not, but we're going to take some steps today that are going to be a little bit kind of challenging for us. And this first one that I want to talk about is this. It's the idea of this hospitality thing is this. It is welcoming, caring for, making room for, giving space to those who are strangers. People who are different from us. People that we don't normally hang out with. And Paul actually identifies two groups of people in this passage that he's talking about. Okay? He's talking about, first of all, he's talking about a group of people that might actually be sort of antagonistic toward God, and therefore, since we represent God, they're sort of kind of antagonistic toward us. In fact, he even refers to it as being persecuted. Now, beloved, listen, I want you to come in close. We don't know anything about the persecution these people knew about. If we think we're persecuted, listen, I can take you to some places where they are truly being persecuted. Don't know if you know this, but today there will be people who are arrested for gathering together in worship together in a secret space. They're found out, they're arrested, and some of them will put in jail for the rest of their lives, never to be heard from again, or they may even lose their life. That will happen today on our earth in our time. So if we think we're being persecuted in our country, we got, okay, look. Let's just get a little perspective, okay? That's not happening. But the idea for us, the application for us is those who might be a little antagonistic toward God, or they are disinterested, or they think we're kind of crazy for being church people, all right? But there's a second group here that Paul talks about, and that's down in verse 16. He says, stop being proud. Be willing to associate with people of lower status or low position. We're going to run into people from time to time that are what we might call sort of needy. They may even be people that kind of like, it costs us to take some time and, you know, in fact, they're the kind of people, I think what Paul's talking about, they're the kind of people that we like to kind of like go through life and like play like they're not there because they're needy. And Lord knows we don't have time for needy people, okay? We're busy Americans, so we don't really have time for that, okay? And so that's who Paul might be talking about. There may even be people that we like even try to avoid. If we see them, and if we see them before they see us, then maybe we might even try to make our way around where we don't have to deal with them because they're going to ask us for something. What the scriptures are telling us is that we are going to need to find a way to open up and give space to and make room for those kind of people. Those who are different than us, who may live a life at a little different station. And quite frankly, sometimes we need to realize as Christians that they might actually already know Christ. It's not like this is an evangelism thing. It's not like we're just trying to win them to Jesus. They may have a greater faith than we have. In fact, they've already proven a greater dependence on God for their daily sustenance, and they're struggling and they're behind. And I don't know what the situation is, but maybe they just need a little extra need. And we are called by the scriptures to step up and make room for them, welcome them, offer them hospitality, give space to them in our lives. And quite frankly, that's a challenging thing for us. And that's a steep enough idea, the idea of this being actually for strangers, people who are different from us or who have a little higher need than we think they ought to have, for us to sit down and take a little bit of a break on this hike, okay? So let's just take a little bit of a break. And what I want to do while we're taking this break and take a breath is give a little perspective. Now, last month, I had one of my 60-something birthdays, and one of my friends who thought it would be fun to kind of, he's younger than I am, kind of like, kind of poke me a little bit because I'm old. He sent me this little meme about, he called it a pro tip, but this is what he sent me. It's a pro tip about what to do when you're on a hike and you get out of breath. Take binoculars with you, and then while you're trying to catch your breath, just kind of look around like, looking at nature and kind of enjoying that. You got to be careful about how you do that, because if you're not careful, you'll fog up the glass on the way up, okay? Because so what I want to do is provide you some little perspective through some lens today for just a second while we're taking a breath on this steeper climb of actually thinking about doing this with strangers, those that we might be a little bit uncomfortable with. We might not like them, they might not like us, but whether we do or we don't, they're just sort of kind of, they're different than we are. Here's the perspective I want us to have. When we think about how it was that God, being God, saw us as different and strangers to himself, made room for, gave space to, extended a welcome to, and invited us. God extended hospitality, heavenly hospitality, to us through his son Jesus Christ by inviting us into his family. And I want you to know, by the way, we all want you to feel like, if you are a person who has not accepted that offer of forgiveness and receiving God's extension of hospitality to you, that he's made available to you through Jesus Christ and Christ's death on the cross and raising from the grave, we want to encourage you to join us in saying yes to God's offer, RSVP yes, and invite Christ to come into your life and give your life. Say yes to that offer of opportunity, because what Christ is doing is he's extending to us as human beings, those who are different, those who are strangers to God, those who are in a low position and even somewhat sometimes antagonistic toward him, he's offering us hospitality. And we now, as his followers, as his representatives, at and as the intersection between heaven and earth, are on behalf of God extending that hospitality when we open up our lives and give space to and make room for those who are different, those who are strangers, whether we like them or not, where they're even maybe antagonistic toward us because we follow God. We're called to give space to, extend God's invitation of hospitality to. Now, maybe you're ready for a little bit more of a climb up the steep hill. I want you to look a little bit at what this text says. Back in verse 13, it says, practice hospitality. It's more than just the occasional kind of like giving, okay, yeah, I'll tip my hat to it, do it every once in a while. The idea of practicing is, it means, in one way, it means let it become a habit. Let it become ingrained in your life. In fact, this is technically what it means. It means to pursue it, to hunt it down, to run after it, to hunt it down with reckless abandon. I took that phrase, hunting it down. I mean, we're in Texas, right? We know what Texas deer hunters like to do this time of year. How serious is that stuff? Some of you are bow hunters, and you've even taken it more seriously. You put on all kinds of special clothing and all kinds of I don't know how to describe it, how seriously you take this stuff of hunting down little precious innocent deer. I mean, I'm just joking around, okay? That's just a joke, all right? Okay, I've done it myself. But this bow hunting thing, they take it so seriously. They take dog urine and put it on his cologne. I mean, that is serious, serious stuff. And what we're being called to by the scriptures is have that kind of pursuit, that kind of hunting down. And oh, by the way, what we're hunting down is the hospitality, not the people that we're supposed to be hospitable to. Let's not mix that up, okay? I've seen some Christians that got that backwards and they were hunting down people. No, okay? We're hunting down the hospitality. We've really got to make it intentional. And here's the thing. It's not that I think we're bad at this stuff. I don't think we are. I don't think we're bad at giving space to things and stuff in our lives, making room for it. In fact, I think even, I would say, well, we're Texan, right? So we're pretty good at hospitality. I mean, howdy, y'all. I mean, yeah, but it's just human nature. I think we are pretty good at making space for things, giving time to things, welcoming into our lives things. And the things I'm talking about are not necessarily evil or bad things. They are things that actually are maybe even good things that we've allowed into our lives, that we've given space to, that we've made room for, that we've given hospitality, extended hospitality to. And I'm real tempted to give you a list of examples of what I'm talking about in terms of the kinds of things that we make room for in our lives and give space to in our lives. But I knew as soon as I do that and I leave yours off the list, you'll be going, okay, good, I'm off the hook. Wasn't talking about me. What I'd rather do is draw your attention right now to that thing in your life that probably the Holy Spirit is kind of tapping you on the shoulder about, that maybe you've given a little bit too much room for and a little bit space to. It may have something to do with your career, because one of those things that we do is this bigger and better thing. We like bigger and better. And that's just human nature. And so in order to serve bigger and better, we pursue things with abandon. And we let things like career get so heavy in our lives, and maybe even a side hustle or two or three as well to make it work in today's economy, to where those things come in and all of a sudden now they're out of control. They've taken over. We've given a little bit of space to, and they've taken this huge thing in our lives. It may have to do with our recreation and our hobbies. It may be driven not just by the bigger and better drive, but actually what we call FOMO, the fear of missing out, where we're just worried. We always think about, well, maybe there's even something better or bigger and better over there. And so we leave what we've got and we pursue that over there, and we let this thing in or that idea over there, or we kind of chase that down. We're pretty good at this stuff. And we might even do it with our kids. We have this FOMO for our children. We're worried that they might get kind of behind, or they won't get as a fair shake, or they won't get as good of an opportunity as other kids out there. So and gosh, parents, it's just so hard for you. I got to tell you, it hurts my heart to think about how hard it is for you. All this idea of sports and camps and vacations and clothes and tech and gear and cars and college and where does it end? I can tell you, my kids are grown. It doesn't end. And what happens is we let these things that are not necessarily evil or bad into our lives. We make room for them. We give extended hospitality to them. We let them into our lives, and the next thing you know, they're like that bum friend who we come home and find sitting on the couch, drinking straight from the carton with his dirty sock on the coffee table. I mean, that happens in our lives when we let things like this in. And so what we have to realize is we have to make room. And in order to make room, we have to let go of some things. I mean, quite frankly, here's the deal. I want to really talk to the parents for a second, and I'm going to take a little bit of a breath from this steep climb, and I'm going to talk to the parents for just a second. Whether you're here today or online, I want to tell you that I know how hard it is. Valerie and I wrestled so much with all those decisions about select sports and competitions and camps and clothes and tech and when to give them a phone or not or whatever, and all this sort of stuff. And how much, I think Valerie spent most of her life, driving in and out of our driveway, taking kids places. I mean, one night I remember she came home, she was exhausted, she plopped into a chair and just inadvertently reached over to grab the shoulder strap to plug it in. I mean, that's how your life works, right? We know that. It's so hard. And I got to tell you something. We want you to know we're pulling for you. And I know you get this. I know you get it. And the reason I know you get it is because you're here today. You've got your kids in church. So you get this stuff, and I go, oh man, that's awesome. Thank you for bringing your kids. Thanks for bringing your family to church. Thank you so much for doing this. And I want you to know, we think it's hard. In fact, Valerie and I will tell you, we think it's harder now for you than it was for us. Our kids are grown, so they're 31, 28, 25. And as hard as it was for us, we think it's even harder for you. And we're pulling for you. We're praying for you. And we want you to hear this. We believe God is pulling for you. God's pulling for you. He wants you to lean into this idea. Lean into this idea of thinking about the pie of your life and how much you've got. And so when the preacher starts talking about adding things like loving each other and bearing burdens and, living in harmony, and oh my gosh, practice, open up, giving space and time to people who are strangers or different or whatever. Where am I going to fit that in? I'll just have to make my pie of my life bigger. No, it don't work that way. Your pie is set, beloved. What you're going to have to do is decrease some things in order to increase others. You and I have to do that all the time. And that's what the challenge is here. We're really going to have to do that. And I want you to know God is pulling for you. He knows how hard it is. He wants you to lean into this with him. He wants you to lean on him. He wants you to ask him for help. Maybe your only response today is, God, help. Oh, the Father, like every father, always loves to hear from his children, Father, I need your help. Even now with my kids grown, they call me, Dad, we need your help. Got it, what can I do to help you? And then I realize, it might be money. Okay, so all right, whatever, okay, right, okay. The Father always loves to hear that from his kids. Now, some of you are thinking this, before I say that, I want to say this. We think we have a way for you to kind of dip your toe in this. This is a steep climb, we realize. So we think there's a way for you to dip your toe in this, and I risk this kind of being self-serving, but I want you to know, when we planned this sermon, it wasn't in order to promote this thing, but we planned this thing, and I think the thing that we planned and the sermon that we planned kind of fit together, so I'm going to put them together, and I'm hoping that it's not too much kind of self-serving, but we've got a day coming up where we think you can kind of dip your toe in this making room for others thing, okay, where you could try it out, even as a family. It's called For the City. And it's on Saturday, November 19th, and you're going to hear more about that later in the service. But I just want you to know it's a time where you as a family could get involved with opening up some space and some time and some effort toward those who are in need, who are maybe living in a little different way than you are. The kind of people that maybe even you feel like it's hard to kind of. You shouldn't ignore them, you know that, but it's just hard because you know it's going to take something from you. And so I want to encourage you to just mark November 19th, and as you hear about that, just kind of set some time aside to participate in that, because I think it's a way for you to kind of dip your toe in this stuff of practicing hospitality, of making room for, giving space to, welcoming, extending God's invitation of hospitality to people who are in need. And you'll hear more about that a little bit later on. And I know that some of you are thinking, okay, the big problem I'm struggling with is I've tried this before, and I when I got into it, I felt taken advantage of. Like that guy sitting on the couch, that figurative guy sitting on the couch drinking straight from the carton with his dirty sock on the coffee. That's what happened. That's what happened when I tried to help someone. Can I just tell you? Yeah, it happens. It will happen to you. If you do it right, that's going to happen to you. Think about it. That's what happened to God when God extended hospitality to us. Because sometimes we don't all appreciate that and handle that like we're supposed to. We take advantage of it. In fact, God was willing to extend that hospitality even though he knew the vast majority of people were going to say, nah, I'm good. Don't need you. The only thing I know to do in a situation where I know when I'm extending myself and I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable and I feel like maybe I might be taken advantage of, I think back to my dad, and two things I learned from my dad. My dad was this wonderful, wonderful Christian man, very, very different personality from me, just a person of peace, and kind of sometimes came across as easy money and gullible because he had this philosophy. This is the first thing I learned from my dad. The right way to live, if you live like Christ taught us to, means that you'll probably trust people until they give you a reason not to trust them, rather than the other way around. You don't engage with them and do things for them only if they've built their trust with you. You extend, you make space for, you offer time to, you extend hospitality, trusting them until they give you a reason not to. And I said, well, Dad, what happens when they take advantage of you? He goes, well, first of all, what you do is you remember that God is the keeper of those accounts. He'll keep all that straight. You don't need to worry about it. God's watching. He'll keep all those accounts. Well, God, Dad, what do I do if I feel like what I'm doing is actually to their detriment, where I'm enabling them in a way or something? And my dad always said it this way. There's a place where you stop, you're helping people. But the place where you stop is when you determine that for sure it is a detriment to them. But you never stop it because it's a detriment to you. Only when it becomes a detriment to them. I have to tell you, as I thought about this sermon and thought about my dad's advice, I thought about something that God's been speaking to me about in the last several months, about something he really wants me to get into the grain of my life. And I guess it's a way of practicing hospitality. I think for me personally, what God's asking me to do about this is to figure out a way to make a habit of and get into my regular routine and make a rhythm and part of my life to where it just is something I do on a regular basis, like breathing, without even thinking about it, is that I've got to figure out a way to engage with and extend hospitality to, make room for, give space to people who are homeless. And I think that's probably going to be with our partner, Feed My Sheep, downtown Temple. And so what I'm going to start with, and I'm telling you this for accountability purposes, because I'm doing nothing like this in my life right now. And this is a big challenge for me to try this. I'm nervous about it. I'm unsure about it. I'm self-conscious about it. And I'm going to ask you to pray for me that I'll grow into this and it becomes something that becomes ingrained in my life. That to start with, one afternoon or overnight per month, I'm going to give time and space to people who are currently homeless. Somehow, some way. I think that's engaging with Feed My Sheep. But I'm so unsure about this that I want to challenge you to pray for me about it. Because I'm not doing anything like this at all in my life, just to be honest with you. I'm just not. I'm nice to people. I'm friendly to people. I'm friendly to strangers all the time. But I need to take a step up in engaging and extending and giving space to and practicing hospitality to people in this way. And you may be thinking, well, hey, Pastor, cool for you. Let us know how that goes. You do realize I'm not doing this because I'm a pastor, right? I'm doing this because the scriptures tell us who follow Christ to do this. And I'm not very good at it right now. I need to get better at it. You see, here's the thing. I asked you in the beginning, what do you think is our reputation out there as a church? How do you think we are known? How do you hear? What do you hear about what we're known for? Have you made the connection yet that what what the church is known for, since you and I are the church, is what we're known for. You and I are known for. That's what the church is known for. And I would like to think that maybe this is the kind of thing that becomes so ingrained in my life that it's something, and I'm not doing it for show, but it's something that I'm known for, because here's the thing. I live at and as the intersection between heaven and earth, and whatever you and I are known for, the God we believe in becomes known for. And so it matters. It matters. Would you bow your head? Will you close your eyes? Would you take 60 seconds to listen to the Spirit of God talk to you about what He wants you to do in response to this call to give space to, extend hospitality to people, not stuff, people.